We all know Mario Galaxy is great. Breathtaking visuals for the Wii, an amazing orchestral soundtrack, and a back-to-basics approach after Sunshine's convoluted progression system, which I'll get to when I review that game. You don't need me to tell you that. However, the Mario Galaxy movie released this year, in my opinion, as a Mario fan, it fails as an adaptation. I saw the movie the week it released in theaters. I wore a Mario hat to the theater for Pete's sake. I didn't want this to be anything less than great. I don't actively want media I want to enjoy to be bad. I'm willing to give things a chance. I did make my thoughts on this a post, but I wanted to make this in video form since I don't feel like doing a review on the Galaxy game since everything I have to say has been said many times by other people. Also, I hope Nintendo and Illumination don't strike this video. To prevent such a terrible fate, I'll be using stills and trailer footage. Without further ado, here we go! Since this movie is relatively new, I'll give a spoiler warning for the movie. There's your warning. In 3, 2, 1, and go. Before I get all negative on this movie, I do have a few positives. This movie looks absolutely breathtaking, especially in the movie theater with the giant screen and surround sound speakers. They once again nailed the Mario aesthetic with the set design and animation, even if Illumination's art style isn't my thing, especially with the character designs. They look slightly uncanny to me. I think it's the faces, especially Mario's and Peach's. I like how bouncy and colorful everything looks, which is very fitting for the Mario universe. Also, the music. This movie is filled with fantastic remixes of classic Mario themes, especially Galaxy, and they toned down the licensed music from the first movie, since the first one was littered with it. Hey, at least they improved on something. They improved on that front. At least with how this movie looks and sounds, I have little to no issue with that. Unfortunately, that's pretty much all I have to say on this movie that's unambiguously positive. The rest of this movie is either a mixed bag or just not good. First, my biggest issue with this movie is the amount of references in it. Let me be clear, references aren't a bad thing when done tastefully. Which, for all of the things I don't like about the Sonic movies, this is not one of them. I'll say this, I enjoyed the references in this movie since I'm a huge Mario fan and I liked spotting them. However, in this movie, they reference everything every 5 seconds and it's the detriment of the quote-unquote plot, if you can even call it that, since there's barely even one in this movie. References are not a substitute for actual plot. I even talk about this in my 5Ds review. I'll play a clip. 5Ds does callbacks and nostalgia really well in my opinion. It tries the line between callback and pandering well, and treats the older shows as world building while being fun references that don't detract from the story if you're not in the know, such as Neo Domino City being the successor to Domino City in the Battle City arc, as I mentioned previously, and Ruka having the spirit powers that Judai from GX has. There's some callbacks later in the show too that follow this trend. This could have very easily become a 2010 Sonic or Mario movie situation where the references substitute for plot depth. In addition to the fact that the references are just there for the sake of nostalgia and to get people to point at the screen and go, I remember that! When they're not referencing something and actually attempt something for the plot, it's not fleshed out or anything. Example being when they tried to do the will they won't they with Mario and Peach, and it didn't lead to much of anything beyond the typical kiss of the cheek, which happens at every Mario game. Or how Peach and Rosalina are revealed to be sisters, which I do like as a concept actually, and it's something I hope the games explore and make canon in some form or fashion. They don't actually show them doing anything together aside from flashbacks until the last 5 minutes of the movie. Yes, I know Rosalina is kidnapped in this movie, but I'll touch on that later. The first movie hinted at the relationship of sisters for like a minute when Peach reflects this to Mario. I'm glad they finally bothered to explain that bit in the first movie, but the payoff felt half-baked. They also attempt a Bowser reforming arc where he wants to bond with his son and give up his evil ways, but it's so underdeveloped it makes Mario's arc from the first movie look like a masterpiece. Of course, it goes exactly the way you'd expect as he betrays Mario and helps his son anyway. This entire arc gets tossed aside for the next action scene. The acting is fine, I guess. It's the same cast as the first movie, including Chris Pratt as Mario and Jack Black as Bowser. I still don't care for Chris Pratt as Mario, though. He doesn't fit Mario in my opinion. The Japanese dub cast is stacked, though. Mamoru Miyano as Mario, Tomokazu Seki as Toad, and Maya Sakamoto as Rosalina. She got done dirty as Rosalina, though. Yes, they got Setsuna F-Sei and Ryuji Sakamoto as Mario, Domon Kashu and the Werehog as Toad, and I guess Princess Alicia and Xiao Yu as Rosalina. I don't hate the English cast or anything, but I actually know more of the Japanese actors in this movie. Can you tell I watch anime and subbed to Japanese? Now to rant about Rosalina. She's the most integral part of the Galaxy games, and she's barely even in this movie since she's the damsel of distress in this movie. In the game, she's this all-powerful space goddess that has involved backstory, which isn't typical for a Mario game, but it's great since it gives depth to this character and shows why I should care about her over the multiple other princesses in this franchise. Her story is about isolation and found family, and it's touching. Not gonna go too deep into this, but the movie does nothing with this. You had a compelling narrative for her right there, and they didn't take it. While I like Peach being her sister as a concept, it undermines her entire backstory since, she was isolated and alone. I'm fine with the idea on paper, but it contradicts the very arc Rosalina is even known for. Mario Canon's loose, I get it, but they should at least keep it consistent with established precedents. It's sad when Fox McCloud from Star Fox has more screen time than Rosalina. I know that it was the subtly advertised the new Star Fox remake on Switch too. Let me repeat myself. Fox McCloud from Star Fox has more screen time than Rosalina. Do you not see that's an issue? He doesn't do much beyond pilot the ship to get to Bowser's Fortress. They have one scene where it's even implied he has a rivalry with Mario, and they do nothing with it. They had a good idea and they tossed it right in the trash. The anime montage they had was cool though. Oh, the person that animated that was Benjamin Fowler, sorry if I butchered that name, who worked on Jujutsu Kaisen. I need to watch that eventually, I heard it's really good. The Fox thing makes no sense lore-wise, it's literally just Fox gets teleported to Mario's world through another dimension, but then again Yoshi's New Island does this with future Bowser anyway, and Fox has gone to weird alternate dimensions before, so I'll let it slide this time. Just because she's kidnapped doesn't mean she can't do anything. Rosalina is the very thing Galaxy's plot is hinged on, by the way. This issue is the same with Luigi in the first movie when it was called the Super Mario Brothers movie. At least Luigi did something with Mario at the end and defeated Bowser. Rosalina gets like 10 minutes of screen time at the start when she fights Mega Leg, which admittedly is a neat action scene to get the audience engaged, and at the end when she's rescued. An example of this done well in the Mario series is Paper Mario 64 and Down Your Door with Peach. In the first two games, while yes, she's kidnapped as per usual, it still serves the greater narrative. She actively takes part in helping Mario by relaying him information on Bowser and the X-Nauts' plans via a companion she meets, being Twink and Tech respectively. This gives her agency in the plot despite the fact she's captured in an isolated area from the story. She's even part of the climax of Paper Mario 64 as she helps Mario defeat Bowser with her wishes to power up Mario, which allows him to disable Bowser's Star Rod power and beat him. In both games, she makes the best of her situation and is always willing to help others in need and get stuff done. Reminds me a lot of Amy Rose from the adventure games, actually. She helps Shadow realize Maria's true intentions, which allows Shadow to help out the others to stop the Bio Lizard. Adding on the Paper Mario Peach, she even becomes a hero alongside Mario, Luigi, and even Bowser in Super Paper Mario, proving that she can save the day along with everyone else. They could have absolutely done more with Rosalina in this movie despite her being kidnapped. Maybe have her go into some of the lore, use her as a plot device to get more on the villains. I would have been fine if she got freed earlier in the movie so she can contribute. They could have had their big sister moment to reveal the way to Bowser's Fortress or something. I'd rather that than introduce Fox halfway through the movie. She got done so dirty. It's such a disappointment to her character since she has the most material to work with in the games themselves, and they did nothing with it beyond reading the story to the Lumas. I couldn't imagine being excited to see the movie as a Rosalina fan and getting this. Peach and Rosalina's sister stuff contradicts the latter's backstory. It does work on the movie continuity due to it being a new continuity. I like the idea of them being sisters in the games on paper, but it'd mess with and most likely ruin the thing Rosalina's character is most beloved for. I'm fine with more backstory for the characters even if Nintendo doesn't seem interested in that, but developing one character to potentially butcher another isn't something I care for. Yes, Rosalina is characterized as more happy in newer games, and I don't care for her much personally despite her having friends in the Mushroom Kingdom now. I'm fine with it in spin-offs though since everyone is like that, but at least stick to her more isolated, quiet personality in mainline Mario. Peach and Rosalina don't even interact with each other outside of flashbacks until the big sister moment at the end, where the movie and the day is saved. Another thing about this movie is that it just felt like it had no time to breathe or flesh anything out, and it zipped by a mile a minute. Which is something the first movie already didn't do that well, as both movies are filled with generic action scene after generic action scene. I'll admit they're fun to watch in isolation even if there's no substance. That's the key thing. In isolation. As a whole, the movie's just held together with glue and tape. There's such a thing as too fast pacing. At least the first movie attempted to slow down things with Mario's quote-unquote character arc, even if I wish they fleshed that out more in the first movie, since the idea of Mario trying to meet his parents' expectations is a great idea on paper. But again, they do so little with it until the very end, where the ending is admittedly kinda good, nothing earth-shattering, but it works for what that movie attempted to do with its story. I'm going to address something that Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Mario and one of the producers on this movie, has said about this movie's fast pacing in an interview with Nintendo Dream. I think it was good that we decided to make it a fast-paced 90 minutes that would be over in no time to catch your breath. Miyamoto, what were you actually thinking? Pacing needs breaks to be effective. If the pacing is so breakneck that you can't even catch your breath, then there's no impact on the scenes that are supposed to have impact. Pacing needs to slow down the work. It goes by too fast that I barely even process or feel what's even happening on the screen. There's a difference between seeing the scenes happen and engaging and feeling what happens on the screen. Miyamoto, your philosophy of fun first, story second, works for a platformer game since it's a, game that doesn't require a story for the game to be fun. The simple plot is there to serve the gameplay, nothing more. The gameplay is the main appeal here. There's a reason why Galaxy 2's lack of plot doesn't affect the enjoyment and critical response of that game that much. For a movie or more involved genre like an RPG, that doesn't fly for any serious attempt at a story since you need plot structure and characters to make the plot go forward, which requires actual writing and backstory for it to be compelling. Can't believe I have to say this, but he is a video game designer, not a filmmaker. Those require two completely different skill sets to make work. I'm really not trying to pin the blame solely on Miyamoto for this, since it's really unfair to pin the blame on one for an entire crew and cast of actors. But when you're speaking up for the entire team and say stuff like this, it reflects badly on the people who worked on this film. I respect Miyamoto for creating Mario, Zelda, and other such franchises, but please keep him out of filmmaking. He does not know what makes a good film experience. He just doesn't have the practical experience to know. It's like how Yoshio Sakamoto wrote and directed Other M and people raked his story over the coals. Why? He's not a good writer for more involved cinematic experiences. He's a game designer for simpler stories where it can be a bit rough since Metroid was always built on subtle environmental storytelling and some cutscenes, so a bit of roughness isn't a huge deal since the gameplay is the main appeal of those simpler games. Again, two different skill sets at play. There's a reason they hire writers and story directors for more involved games. They have the experience to know what makes a good story or not. Miyamoto and Sakamoto could get the experience by learning, but they don't have the experience to make a great film. Sorry for the little tangent. I find pacing in movies and shows isn't talked about enough, as it's a really important element. Anyway, Bowser's arc could have been interesting since it parallels Mario's arc in the first movie, as both feels like they want us to make someone proud, albeit the roles are reversed in this movie, since Bowser wants to impress and reconnect with his son, rather than Mario with his parents. At least with the first movie, there's something there. We can see the slow change in Mario's character, even if it resolves way too quickly and it isn't fleshed out much at all, as it's done in the most predictable Hollywood movie way. At least that's something. In this movie, they just give up halfway in the movie when Bowser betrays them and it's never really addressed again. It's there for a vague sense of conflict to make Bowser seem more complex of a character than he actually is. I've seen a very similar arc done in a Mario game before. Oh yeah, Mario Sunshine. In that game, Bowser Jr. disguises himself as Shadow Mario. He uses a magical paintbrush, which he also uses in this movie, by the way, to deface Io Delfino to frame Mario. Bowser counted on the fact that the pianists were stupid enough to fall for that and charge Mario with the crime, which they did actually do. This might be Bowser's smartest plan to date. Along with this, Bowser also told his son that Peach is his mama, which gives him a legitimate reason for kidnapping Peach instead of doing it because Bowser is bored and wants something to hang out with, I guess. Also, how would Bowser and Peach having a son logistically work if she actually was his mama? I'm not gonna think too hard about this one. When Mario beats them as per usual in their hot tub in the sky that somehow exists, they fall and land at a nearby island, and Bowser Jr. tells his dad that he already knew Peach wasn't his mama and he wants to fight that Mario again. Bowser's proud of his son for continuing the Bowser lineage. Like, how is this more character depth than the movie gave them? In a few scenes, we know the motives of our villains, have a reason for the inciting incident, even if it's not much more than a gameplay excuse, and it actually has a payoff. The movie doesn't even have any sort of payoff for the arc they try to set up, so the entire arc falls flat. As an adaptation, the Galaxy movie doesn't even bother to adapt much from the games despite the name of the movie. The only things they do adapt are the Star Festival, Rosalinda reading to the Lumas, and the castle getting taken to space by Bowser/Bowser Jr., which is nice, but for something called the Super Mario Galaxy movie, I wanted more. We already visit Honey Hive Galaxy and see the Honey Queen, so why not have more characters like Lubba, the Surfer Penguin, or the Toad Brigade? Lubba would have been perfect to drive the ship in the movie since, Lubba helped Mario drive Starship Mario? Where's Lubba at? Instead, they put in Fox McCloud from a completely different franchise, and he barely does anything in this movie. He has a vague rival moment with Mario they don't ever expand on, and later drives a gang to Bowser's Fortress, and that's it. He's only there to serve as an ad for Star Fox and for potential Star Fox movies. I know I said it earlier, but he's there purely for marketing and to look cool on the posters. Even some of the bosses like Dino Piranha, Bugaboom, or King Caliente would have been nice to throw in somehow. Maybe have King Caliente and the lava attacking the gang with coconuts like in the game, or Bugaboom when they're all in Honey Hive. Like, anything else from this game besides one scene of the Honey Queen and Mega Leg would have been cool. It also would have been cool for Bowser Jr. to use more of his contraptions like Mega Hammer or the Boomsday Machine in Galaxy 2. Before anyone mentions it, yes, I know the weapon they use in the movie gets its name from the latter. That would have been a great idea instead of Bowser Jr. just being in his Wonder Form, which looks cool, I'll admit. It's just there for the reference to the Mario Bros. Wonder, and so they have a way to kidnap Rosalina. They name drop places like the Gateway Galaxy and Space Junk, but they don't explore the planets or play around with the gravity mechanics of the actual game much at all in the movie. I believe the casino scene with Wart does use the gravity though, since they fight in a cube. They could have used the gimmick mechanics like the rolling ball to get a star to power the ship, or they could have used the manta ray or the bird to have a cool exploration action scene. Heck, Space Junk Galaxy is an instance of pole stars on an actual stage. I say that since pole stars are used to select galaxies in the first Galaxy game. Maybe have some of those. The gravity mechanics were the defining gameplay feature of Galaxy, and they rarely do anything clever with it. Somehow, with the franchise as vast and storied as Mario, they barely did anything plot-wise with it. No, having them be background elements does not count. They don't need to be major characters or anything, but at least have them comment on the worlds they're in or have them have a line or something. Of course, there's a fine line to tread with this to not have too much or too little, but that's on the writers and people working on this movie to balance well. How about Mario and the gang doing missions like in the games to get power stars to power the ship? That's an integral part of the plot in both Galaxy games anyway. They already have a montage in the movie of them defending the kingdom, so why not do a montage or something here? It doesn't have to be the gang needs X stars to proceed as an exact one-to-one mechanic, but adapt the mechanic to work for a film. That's the entire point of an adaptation, to take the source material and make it work in the new medium. I don't need everything copied and pasted from Galaxy in the movie for it to be good. What I'm saying is to play around with the source material to do two things. Respect the source material, and do something new and clever with it. This is so it stands alone and doesn't just make people want to play the games instead. Before anyone says that these are more so missed opportunities, yes, they are. And I'll admit it's the Mario fan in me ranting. But when you name your movie the Mario Galaxy movie, there's a certain expectation and pedigree you need to reach to meet that expectation for people including myself.
Oh yeah, Yoshi. I almost forgot he was even in this movie. He does nothing special. He's just there in the main cast like he knows the gang for years and he doesn't have any backstory really. They just met in the movie continuity so they shouldn't know each other or have any reason to trust each other. For all the brothers know, he could kill them on sight. He's just there to have the green dinosaur on the screen for merchandising and to sell the popcorn bucket. I thought we'd go to Yoshi's Island since it was shown in the first movie or some equivalent in the Galaxy games like Yoshi's Star Galaxy. I don't know, anything's better than him being a background character. So we used the first few minutes of this movie in the Sand Kingdom from Odyssey just to pay off the post-credit scene from the first movie? We've waited 3 years for this payoff on this teaser and it amounted to not much. Yoshi's an integral part of Galaxy 2 and not once do we see Yoshi use his tongue-swinging abilities. That would be fine and I'd be cool with that if you didn't treat him like a huge deal and tie him to Galaxy specifically. As for Rosalina, have her slowly read out the backstory of her and Peach and show her grabbing the book before she gets kidnapped so she has something to do. Rosalina's whole thing is reading to the Lumas, which they do open the movie on, which is cute, and admittedly the most like the source material in the entire movie. But maybe have her stories remind her of home. They could have absolutely made the sister plotline work in the movie universe while fitting her backstory and adapting it to the big screen. I'm not asking for the movie to be a 90-minute deep dive on Rosalina with somber music and backstory, but at least put in the effort to adapt a core part of her character in a way that serves the plot. Of course, they chose not to. Both Peach and Rosalina in the movie continuity were from space and were born on a planet, and it'd be a neat reversal on the Rosalina backstory if they did it well. Her story is about found family and isolation after all. The movie could have changed a few details and made it work despite it being different. Maybe when they're separated, she finds herself all alone and she met the Lumas or something along the way to find her sister, to give the sense of family she lost. As I've said, I like the idea to be explored in the games on paper, but I wouldn't want this to be in the game canon due to it completely messing with established canon for Rosalina, and the fact that it retroactively makes Peach this character grander than she was ever intended to be. She was written as this gameplay motivator first, and the girl Mario has to save for the Mario games to have an end goal. Nothing wrong with making her more involved as a character and getting on the action, but not at the cost of potentially ruin Rosalina's game backstory and Mario and Luigi feeling like side characters in their own movie. They're isolated from the main conflict of saving Rosalina until the very end. For all intents and purposes, Peach is the main character in this movie. This movie is her story, with Mario and company just there for the ride. I'd be fine with that shakeup if it was done well. The first movie at least had Mario tie into the main conflict since his arc and saving Luigi was the conflict. Luigi was underused in the first movie because of it, but at least there was an attempt, and they're there in the first 10 to 15 minutes when they're in Brooklyn before they get separated. They should at least attempt to have the main characters be equal in terms of contribution to the plot. You can have scenes with one or two characters, but you need to make each character feel important. No, just because Mario's in a lot of action scenes does not mean he's of equal importance in the plot.
Even a great show like Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D struggles with this sometimes, but at least the more underutilized characters serve a narrative purpose that isn't just to have action scenes. It's a very hard balancing act to get right. The only scene I can even think of where Mario's even remotely relevant with some amount of character building is when he tries to express his feelings for Peach and how he's nervous to tell her them at the Star Festival. This would actually be an interesting idea to explore, since we always took for granted the romantic feelings in the games, even if they're not fully gating given that Peach smooches them every game. Again, this is something that was initially written and worked for gameplay as a reward to the player on limited hardware at the time that could and probably should be adapted and expanded on, since it'd be a neat idea to explore. I don't want the movie to be a romantic comedy or anything, but maybe a heart-to-heart between the two. Just one scene to share why we should care about these characters. The story wants me to care about Mario's feelings for Peach, since it's the only thing remotely resembling character development for Mario in this film. I feel like I bring this up every review, but Iris from Mega Man X4. That plot does not put the work in for the audience to care about Iris and Zero's relationship. It's told to us, but not shown. They do the same here. Mario tells us he likes Peach romantically, but their relationship isn't shown much in this movie. It's shown a little in the first movie with the whole fish out of water plot for the both of them, but that's not really enough for me to be convinced. Make their relationship believable enough for the audience to buy into it. Give the audience a few scenes to show us that. Maybe it'd help the pacing too. I don't know, anything's better than Yoshi having to turn the brothers back into adults since Bowser Jr. turned them into babies with a Super Scope. Yes, that Super Scope. They mess with the T-Rex from Odyssey for a solid 5 to 10 minutes. It's a neat Yoshi's Island callback, but it doesn't serve the plot beyond being a fun action scene. Oh, I know why it's in the movie. It's so they can put the cute babies on one of the posters. Really? That's what we're sacrificing valuable runtime for? It's like they had a bowl of oops, all action scenes, and forgot to put the actual plot in the movie. As for how this bare bones plot wraps up, the ending just happens. They beat Bowser again and the gang then rebuilds the castle since it gets taken into space like the actual Mario Galaxy as I mentioned earlier, and it just abruptly cuts the credits. It's just as jarring as it sounds. No resolution to what happens beyond the typical Mario gets a kiss on the cheek. There's no character moments between Mario and Rosalina, and no bonding of Peach and Rosalina beyond a hug and a, "Oh Mario, meet my sister." Yusuke would be very disappointed by the lack of bonds in this movie. This movie ends very similarly to Mega Man Star Force Tribe, where that show just abruptly cuts to a Sonya concert after the main conflict with Dr. Vega resolves with nothing from the characters. They just had a giant battle for the fate of the world, and there's no reflection on what just happened, not a single line from anyone about it, and no resolution to anything. A simple plot can work, as I've said, but you need to sprinkle in well-written character moments to make it interesting. The Mario movie doesn't have characters. It has mascot costumes dressed in the skin of the Mario cast. I'll give some examples of what I'm talking about done well. Staying in the Mega Man franchise for a second, Mega Man Battle Network. This series is centered on the internet adventures of an elementary school boy named Lon Hikari and his best friend and NetNavi, Mega Man.exe. But the key thing that makes the simple plots work in this series is they slow down when it needs to show serious moments. I think Battle Network 3 balances the goofy and serious moments really well, as it is a surprisingly dark plot over most other Battle Network games in the series, but it still manages to have levity in all of that. The other games do this well too, by the way. Another example is Mobile Fighter G Gundam, which is basically just Punch-Out, but with giant mechas complete with goofy, stereotypical Gundams per country. The main character, Damon Kashus, is a literal cartoonishly over-the-top samurai, and the American, Chibbity Crockett's Gundam, is a boxer with oversized guns. Despite all the goofiness, G Gundam manages to tell a story of serious moments that matter. Some examples include Damon wanting to take revenge on his brother, and helping out the other Gundam fighters with whatever their issues are. The point of these examples I gave are that you need a balance between goofy and serious to make a compelling story. To bounce back to Mario for a second, Super Paper Mario does this really well in my opinion. In the same game, a nerd chameleon wants to date Peach through a literal dating sim he made, and on the other hand, the end of an entire world happens since Mario and the others were too late to stop it from being destroyed. As a result, they have to walk through the remains of said world. I'm not asking for plot points and themes this heavy for the movie to be good, and I'm sure Nintendo doesn't want that sort of material in their movie, but the expectation is to make me want to watch and be engaged and leave me wanting more. Make me care about what's happening. Galaxy is allowed to have and does have wacky moments, but is equally as known for its quiet and solemn atmosphere. Some of my favorite moments of Galaxy are the more introspective and quiet ones, such as the starry sky of Space Junk, or the peaceful yet isolated Gateway Galaxy that evokes the feeling of warmth, while evoking the feeling of being alone in space. Adding on to this, I need to talk about the Lumas. In the game, they aren't just background characters, they shape the world literally in this case. And they're extremely important to Rosalina as a character. They're her only friends and her newfound family. She has a Luma in Smash Bros. And Mario Kart Wii for a reason. In the gameplay, the Lumas help out Mario by turning in the new galaxies and planets and turning in the launch and sling stars to help Mario along the way. Also, his spin abilities from a Luma, so there's that. The game goes into the Lumas as part of Rosalina's backstory, and they're integral to it as they helped her find her newfound family after being isolated in space trying to help one find its mother. Given that new pages of the backstory unlocked when getting power stars tells the player more about Rosalina and the Lumas, it gave another incentive to get more besides progression. Why does the game on the Wii have more content to it story-wise than this feature-length film? The background lore of the Lumas enhances the game, and you care enough to want to help them by getting power stars and lighting up the Comet Observatory, which is barely in this movie, by the way. The Lumas made the Comet Observatory feel alive, and they're the reason the planets you're walking on in the game even exist. In the movie continuity? Forget all that. They're just silly comic relief characters that don't really do much, nor is their backstory really explained. I thought they'd go into them since we saw one in the first Mario movie, but nope. That Luma isn't even in this movie until the post-credit scene. Wow. Way to not bother adapting a core part of Galaxy's identity beyond being cute, I guess.
This movie feels all over the place. There's no structure to any of it. It feels like a theme park ride where it's constant fun and thrills with no time to breathe. As soon as it stops though, it doesn't just take a moment to breathe, it's just over. That's what this movie feels like. It's on a sugar rush for 90 minutes, then just crashes after. As the movie is, it feels like the stuff parents put on to shut their kids up. This movie could have been called the Super Mario Bros. Movie 2 or something. That would have worked better for what this movie actually is. It's just the Mario movie again with the half-baked space theme to justify the title. Putting Mario Galaxy in the title carries high expectations, and this movie doesn't even come close to those for me. This barely even constitutes as a movie. It has the absolute bare minimum to even be considered one. It has scenes and a suggestion of a story. The quote-unquote plot is an excuse for stuff to happen and is essentially a string of action scenes. It's like they took a dartboard and chose what Mario game to reference per scene. Like, a Mario Maker scene and a Mario 2 USA callback in a casino where Ward's a mob boss and he sicks his minions on Peach and Toad. Oh, let's have Rob and Mr. Game & Watch just have Nintendo fans point at the screen and want more Nintendo movies. The post-credit scene reveals that Daisy will be in the next one, so that's neat. Maybe they'll explore Sarasaland, that'll be neat since we've only ever seen it in Super Mario Land, a monochrome Game Boy game, but I'll doubt they'll do that. However, I don't know if I trust them to make a third movie at this point. They did an okay enough first one and somehow made the issues it had exponentially worse. As an adaptation though, it feels hard since it doesn't even adapt to the core identity of the game it's trying to adapt, being Rosalina's story, even if yes, that was optional, the gravity mechanics, and the atmosphere of being in the vastness of space. The original game was an interstellar adventure across many galaxies and broke boundaries in terms of Mario conventions and storytelling for mainland Mario. The Mario Galaxy movie could have been so much more, and there's things I really like about it without any caveats such as the visuals and sounds, but this barely feels anything beyond your typical Hollywood movie with a Mario coat of paint. I love Mario, and this franchise means a lot to me and formed a lot of great memories, and I wouldn't be where I am now without it. To see his movies be nothing but colorful slop hurts me a little bit. They're enjoyable for what they are, yes, but that's not the goalpost they should be shooting for. Please don't use the "it's for kids" excuse to defend this. Kids deserve better and can tell when a piece of media is lacking. Yes, kids will eat this up since it's colorful and entertaining, but is this the quality standard we're holding Mario to now? Yes, the Mario series is known for its wacky scenarios, colorful worlds, and fun characters, especially in the RPGs. Those are far better than these movies in regard to their stories and character writing. The main games are games first, so that approach works for them. But this is a movie, which requires more story to pull off well. Why do you think Sticker Star was completely torn apart from being a bland, uninteresting, typical Mario game? Oh yeah, because the Paper Mario series was known for its rich stories, character writing, and expanding the Mario world. Doesn't help that Sticker Star came after Super Paper Mario, the darkest and most in-depth Mario story to date. We're giving these movies a pass now for the same thing Mario fans crapped on Sticker Star for, since they look pretty and sound nice. The Illumination Mario movies don't stand on their own, as I can get a better experience playing the games, especially in Galaxy's case. When the movie makes me go, I want to play the games again for their superior storytelling and the fact that they're actual games, that's an issue. The movie should be an adaptation, but it's simultaneously too faithful and not faithful enough to be one. What you're left with is a nothing burger of a movie that makes me want to play the games. It makes me disappointed at the movie as an adaptation of Mario Galaxy. Despite me being negative on this movie for most of this video, maybe too harshly so, I just want this franchise to have the best shot on the big screen. I'm passionate about this franchise and have nothing but respect for those who made it what it is today. The people behind this movie clearly had tons of fun making and had a lot of love for the series given the amount of care they put in the environments and all the deep cut references that clearly shows they did their homework. However, this doesn't change this movie being the textbook definition of colorful slop so kids can be entertained. It's like junk food. It's great in the moment, but afterwards you regret eating it since it makes you feel awful. This movie exists to have merchandise and to make the safest possible movie to print money. Illumination has done this for years and Mario is a global brand with wide appeal. They don't care about making a great movie that has substance. They care about money and making profit for their bottom line.
What inspired you to build a second Krusty Krab right next door to the original?
Money!
Like I said at the start of the video, I want these movies to be good. I'm not some evil mustache-twirling villain who wants these movies to fail. I'm a Mario fan that wants the best of this franchise. As a movie though, it's at best okay with some good ideas that go nowhere, and at worst it's just not a good movie and barely even adapts the thing the movie is named after and actively frustrates me with all the missed potential. If you're looking for deep, well-written characters and story, you'll be disappointed here. If you want that, play the Paper Mario or Mario and Luigi games for that. If you enjoyed the movie, which I did to some extent despite everything I have said, that's great. I'm not trying to stop anyone from enjoying it. I enjoy junk food every once in a while, but I wanted to criticize it as a Mario Galaxy adaptation and as a movie fairly. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.